2.0. It was indeed a wonderful session. Dr. Engineer Justy. Of people will make a very good innovation into the oil and gas industry. Also, we had our wonderful panel session yesterday by Dr. Imomo was the moderator with other engineers, and it was also because we learned much about how we can improve the technology, oil and gas technology through drones. You can take surveys of oil and gas reserves and other things. And you're welcome again to today's edition. My name is Akile Paul, and I'll still be your host for today. I want to also welcome everyone, all our panelists, and also we have our moderator, person of Engineer Olamide is also in the Dr. Olamide is also in the house. You're welcome, sir, and welcome all our panelists too. You're welcome, and everyone viewing us on YouTube and every other medium. You're all welcome to today's edition. All right, moving on, we'll be having our address from our chairperson, a person of Isaac Olayomi.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you very much. Good day, everyone. My name is Isaac Olayomi. I'm SP Labs Program Chairperson, as well as the Chairperson for the TID 2.0 Planning Committee. I would like to welcome us once again to the second edition of the Industry Discourse. I would like to welcome our distinguished speakers, panelists, tutors, and moderators who have taken time out of their busy schedule to support this course. I would like to welcome our viewers and participants from SP Lab and from other chapters and sections in the SP body, as well as the non-members of SP. The industry discourse was conceived to bridge the gap that exists between the Nigerian energy industry and the classrooms. Building on the success of the first edition, this second edition, being virtual, is structured to expose us all, most especially the students and recent graduates, the current norms and future expectations in the global energy industry. The TID 2.0 desires and hopes to inspire our viewers and participants to transform the energy industry and create a sustainable future. Good morning, everybody, once again, and thank you all for joining us.
Okay. Thank you so much, Heidi, for that. Full edition. All right, so we'll be moving straight to the next session, which is the panel session. I will be discussing about the panelists and the moderator. Okay. Today we'll be talking about transitioning to affordable clean energy resources for a city. We have a moderator, Dr. We have Chichi, we have Michael, we have Monica, we have Dan. These are panelists for today's discussion. We know that it's going to be so much interaction and so much energy as knowledge will be poured out to us. Okay, I'll be talking about this next slide. Okay. Only thing. Sorry for that inconvenience. Only thing that has 50 years experience in the oil and gas industry. He has been responsible for the planning and execution of several wells for marginal operators in Niger Delta. He has prepared several guidelines and operations manual, including guidelines for clean oil development and clean operation manual for different operators. After interning with of petroleum development company, where he has involved in reservoir engineering analysis and reservoir simulation. He joined Avila Hydrocarbon Resources Management, an indigenous well project management company. He was responsible for providing technical advisory service to marginal field acquisition and divestment, well trajectory designs and planning, and petroleum engineering software support. His role included on-site supervision of well currently in Vega. Let me go. Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. He obtained his master's and doctorate degrees in petroleum engineering from the University of Ibadan. He's a member of the Society of Petroleum Engineer and an engineer registered with the Council of Regulatory of Engineering, that's Oerin. He has co-authored several journals, articles, and presented conferences in different areas in petroleum engineering, including gas design, hydrocarbon PVT properties, steam oil ring development, and fiscal terms and policies. He has co-facilitated 3 courses for oil companies: drill engineering for non-drilling engineers, project scoping, estimation and reservoir characterization, detection and modeling. He currently teaches courses such as Introduction to Well Test Analysis, Well Logging and Interpretation, Drilling Methods and Formation Evaluation in the Department of Chemical Petroleum and University of Lagos. We once again welcome Senior Lecturer Dr. Olubenga Olamikoke. Next slide. Also, also welcome engineer Chichi Eminek. Chichi has over 20 years experience in the oil and gas, spanning across the upstream, midstream, and downstream sectors. Her capabilities cut across diverse spectrums, including but not limited to business development and strategy, engineering projects, conceptualization and deal structure, stakeholder management, technical procurement, and overall contract administration. She holds a BNG in chemical engineering from Enugu State University of Science and Technology and an MBA in oil and gas management from the prestigious Robert Gordon University, Aberdeen. She's a member of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Association of Professional Women Engineers of Nigeria, and a certified member with the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria. Chichi started her early career in the Nigerian oil and gas industry as a project engineer with ExxonMobil Nigeria Limited, where she generated cutting-edge industry skills and experiences over a 10-year period. She moved on to other organizations where she gathered diverse experience across the entire industry value chain. She is well-versed in negotiation, industry contracts, and a strong track record of closing commercial deals with virtual partners, as well as being versatile in structuring and financing of projects to ensure optimal value of creation of all stakeholders. Presently, Chichi is replicating her success stories in Negodin Energy Limited as the head gas ventures, where she's responsible for driving the company's gas business and positioning Nekode as lead player for developing gas supply in Nigeria. Also, Chichi is piloting the development and commercialization of associated gas and non-associated gas to boost production in alignment with the company's strategic mandate of being responsible for about 12% Nigeria's total domestic gas supply. One main and core is the focus around unlocking the company's gas potential for over 3 of gas reserves for increased value optimization for growth and profitability in I'm sorry, in her present capacity, she's also facilitating the investment drive to bring alignment and consolidate NECO's huge gas portfolio. Currently, once again, she serves on the Council of the Nigerian Gas Association in the capacity of a financial secretary. You're welcome, Engineer Chichi.
Much.
One of our panelists, Dan. Okay, we have Michael Oerin. Michael Oerin obtained a chemical engineering degree from the Enugu State University of Science and Technology, Willis, emerging as the best graduating student of the department. He's a senior process engineer with Ciplat Petroleum Development Company PLC with experience across engineering design, process monitoring and optimization, as well as shutdown maintenance operations. He's current registered engineer and has been involved in several capital projects from conceptual engineering through commissioning phases. As a technology champion for the corporate engineering department and member of the CIPLA Technology Innovation Team, he has played critical roles in deploying a number of solution-based tools that have enhanced operational excellence in CIPLAT. He has been an active SP member for over 13 years, volunteering in the several capacities across Lagos section and the Nigerian Council. He's currently the Lagos section chairman. He's happily and blessed with 2 children. You're welcome, Michael Oyere. Also, we have one of our panelists, Dan Solomon. Dan Solomon is a marketing manager for battery material at BASF in Germany. His experience cuts across engineering, business, and finance, and he has worked across several functions, including consulting, business development, finance, and marketing in renewable energy and chemical space. He was recently involved in developing a solar energy strategy roadmap for a major oil and gas company, and today he works on marketing strategies to help decarbonize the transportation sector. Sustainability is a topic that is dear to his heart, especially when it pertains to clean and affordable energy for all in sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you so much. We welcome once again our moderator. Okay, also we have Emeka Richard Ochi. Emeka Richard Ochi is a research scholar at the Center on Global Energy Policy at Columbia University, New York, focusing on financial and policy analysis for clean energy applications, including carbon capture and storage to power and industrial facilities. He joined CGEP following a mid-career program in economic policy management at the School of International and Policy Affairs, Columbia University. Prior to the joining CGEP, Emeka was an engineer research economist at the Central Bank of Nigeria, where he published several works on the electricity and gas subsector of the economy and served in various national energy projects. His research and economy reports have helped in making him the energy and real sector of the Nigerian economy. Previously, in consulting and banking as an energy finance and investment lead, analyzing energy investment opportunities for renewable energy projects in sub-Saharan Africa. Emeka holds a Master of Science in Energy Economics from the University of Aberdeen, United Kingdom, as well as Bachelor of Science with honors in the economics from Abia State University, Nigeria. Thank you so much for listening. We have that's a brief profile about all our panelists and our moderator. Okay, moving on, we'll be having the session now, which is the discussion, which is based on transitioning to affordable clean energy resources for a suitable future. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this session. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Benga.
Yeah,
Good
hello
morning.
Dan. Morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Benga. Thanks for having us here.
Yeah, Mike.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Chichi, I hope you're there.
Benga, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Have I left anybody out? Solomon.
Yeah, Solomon's here.
Okay, so
Good morning.
it's fine. I'll address the lady and gentleman by first name basis. I want to appreciate SP Unilag for this opportunity to moderate the panel session 2, and I also want to welcome everybody to this session. As it's been earlier announced, panel session 1 took place yesterday. It was very interesting and feisty, actually. And I won't go over what was discussed, but today we are looking into leveraging innovation and technology for a sustainable oil and gas industry. And first of all, I'd just like to say, what is sustainable development? Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And that's as a marker for this discussion. In December 2015, Nigeria outlined her intended nationally determined contributions to reduction of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. And the measures were: 1, to work towards ending gas flaring by 2030. 2, work towards off-grid solar photovoltaics of about 13 gigawatts. 3, have efficient gas generators. Ensure 2% per year energy efficiency from cars to buses, to improve the electricity grid, and to ensure smart agriculture and reforestation. And this probably is form a basis for our discussions today. And I'd like to start with you, Emeka. What are the effects of transitioning to clean energy sources for the oil and gas industry? What would be the effects of transitioning from fossil fuels to clean energy sources?
Thank you very much, Benga and team, for having me here today. I'm very privileged to, once again, it's becoming more often these days, sit amidst lots of engineers and geologists and professionals in this space as an energy economist. I also want to appreciate the fact that this is not just a manel, we have at least a lady, even though I believe that I'm sure the very next time we would involve more ladies to this panel in line with global standards. But I appreciate the hard work you guys are putting into this. And thank you for having me here today. Now the world is changing and we must change with it, or else, we'll be swept away, as it were. Interestingly, Nigeria is uniquely positioned to drive the transition of Africa's energy production and consumption to low carbon sources, especially as Nigeria's primary energy demand is the highest in Africa, which is about 19% of Africa's 830 million tons of oil equivalent energy demand in 2018. We're also hugely endowed with immense renewable energy resources, abundant sunshine, lots of wind, nicely flowing water for hydropower. We have a burgeoning youthful population of far from lazy youths. I hope the youths are smiling. And we have immense technological innovation on all sides. Yes, we are uniquely positioned to drive this transition. And the world actually expects us to do this. Globally, what more advanced or developed economies, as it were, have done is that they have tasked the energy companies to drive this transition. And that's brought to birth a coalition of top oil majors, about 13 of them, including most of the IOCs that we know, including Saudi Aramco and BP and all that, and they formed this coalition to drive this energy transition called the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative. And they have taken the front row in this financing innovation in clean energy by improving their business models to incorporate investment in R&D in this space, in infrastructure and technology, and they've included that in their balance sheets as an integral part of their business model. And that is why you look around and you see various projects coming up that are being financed and bankrolled by the energy companies in this space. Lots of projects on carbon capture and storage, direct air capture, developing of low carbon hydrogen, various carbon removal technology. They also fund policy research and influence legislation to support policy in this space. And so we can borrow a leaf from what is happening in developing societies, in developed societies. And if we successfully achieve transition, we would avert the unholy effects of climate change, which is here with us. We should remember that climate change has no geographical barriers, and its sociocultural and economic benefits, such as improving our health outcomes, curbing migration and insurgency, driving global energy costs down, fueling economic growth and clean energy, spurring innovation, which would also create jobs because innovation means jobs. And this is what we are seeing in developed societies. This is what we would experience, the oil and gas industry would experience if we transition. And it would also improve our energy sufficiency and help us to grow and remain industrially competitive globally.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emeka. I'll move to you, Mike. How do you see the industry in Nigeria, the oil and gas industry in Nigeria, making this transition over the next 5 and 10 years, or 5 to 10 years?
Good morning, all. Let me also join Emeka to commend SP University of Lagos Student Chapter for putting this together and inviting myself and the rest of the team to communicate a message around the theme. It's very commendable. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Benga, you see clearly the oil and gas industry faces strong opposition, from a public that is greatly concerned with environmental impact of fossil fuels. You have shareholders who are ever more skeptical, and there are also challenges that abound from policymakers that are seeking to simultaneously meet decarbonization goals and at the same time meet the expected oil and gas demand. Our very own DPR is also a classic example of policymakers who have introduced a much more stringent flare penalty, in a bid to save our environment and at the same time to get more producers become more responsible. So with the global energy transition, the demand, financial and social future of oil and gas companies is increasingly in question. However, one thing is key: even with these obstacles, oil and gas remains an important part of the energy mix. So, and this is particularly for developing regions like ours. So you see, there are aggressive efforts towards decarbonization, and this indicates long-term oil and gas role within our energy demand. So one obvious direction the industry is taking, in this development is towards natural gas investments and developments. And this has the potential to remain an integral component of the low carbon energy transition for decades to come. So although challenging, the industry is already evolving via policy mechanisms and technologies in place that are geared towards contributing to the decarbonization of the energy systems. You find this in a number of IOCs, employing technologies such as carbon capture and the likes. So you see this in policies as well, with increased flares penalties. Like I said earlier, you have companies that are heavily investing in state-of-the-art processing facilities to ensure that very reduced carbon emissions and so on are met. Now, the industry is also embracing renewables, particularly solar power to power some equipment within processing facilities in the field. I have solar power driving things like cathodic protection systems and the likes. So it is therefore safe to say that the effect of this transitioning on our industries is very positive. And as far as energy supply goes, the industry will remain very relevant in decades to come. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Really appreciate that. Chichi, I'd like you to turn on your camera. Now we can see you. Okay, yeah, good to see you. Good to see you.
No problem, Benga.
Let me move on a bit. The issue of gas being the transition fuel, the transition hydro in of. So how do you see us? Are we even meeting our emission reduction targets? And how do you see us meeting that in the next 5 to 10 years?
Okay, Benga, thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. SP, thank you. UNILAG chapter, thank you. We'll continue to preach, like I always say, we'll continue to push and put our voice for advocacy, and then see how we overall, can run this narrative in the direction that we know, is best. So speaking to emissions and what has happened so far as it relates to gas flaring, in particular in Nigeria. So the government has been getting very more, deliberate, especially since the advent of the 2018 gas flare law. So you have companies now being forced. Before, the penalties didn't, it was just, I think it was just about 10 naira or so per 1,000 scoff. Now you're talking to penalties that are almost about $4.50 per 1,000 scoff. And what we have been saying is, look, there's some traction, but there can be more traction. It's a whole set of items that have to be dealt with. For us, we always say this, and people need to remember this: Nigeria is more of a gas nation than a crude nation. All the gas you see we have found so far is mostly associated gas that we've encountered while dealing with crude, while drilling for crude. So the environment has begun to change. You have the government even saying there's more focus on gas. You have gas projects, huge gas projects, part of the 7 critical gas projects coming on stream. You have the gas policy, which has just come out of the entire PIB thing. There's a focus, there's a traction, there are the penalties, and companies have begun to look in that direction. For us, if you talk about energy security, you talk about demand, you talk about sustainability. So sustainability is in terms of be it economic, social, or environmental impact. You're speaking to an energy mix that can take charge of the kind of growth populations that we see. So let's be specific around this. Now, take a look at, I like to say these things in context, okay? So we're not looking at one size fits all. So yes, there's a demand clamor for cleaner energy around the world, but let's look at Africa as it is. Africa is nowhere in terms of, the carbon footprint you see in China, or you see in India, or even America. We're decades behind. Africa needs to deal with the resources that we have, and Nigeria is right in the mix of that. And natural gas forms a huge and integral part of some of the economic development we're looking for as a continent. Now, we're speaking to energy security. What have we done? Even in the hub, Nigeria, there's so much attention on the upstream, drilling wells. Nothing has been done fixing up midstream, downstream, taking, forming businesses that can run across board, driving value that can work for us, even in the region. So in terms of speaking specifically to your question, we have a whole lot of focus. So you must have heard, this year, 2020, the minister has said is the year of gas. You have the auto gas coming. Even in the PIB that was brought up the other day, you have gas utilization incentives that are speaking to and really trying to encourage investments for gas. But then it's still a whole lot that has to be done, because the investors that are bringing in money, you have a constraint on capital expenditure right now, capital that is available, finance that is available for projects. So investors want to be able to see whatever monies they're bringing in, how they can be guaranteed to come back. And if we're serious about this gas flaring thing, a whole lot of policies, extra policies have to work. The PIB was just taken to the Senate, and then unfortunately, I just heard, I think it was yesterday or so, that it has been stopped for now, and then they will address it in 2021. We need to wake up. The world has moved ahead. The truth is there will be an energy mix that will sustain the population growth. You are talking of a population growth in Nigeria, for instance, that is doing about 2.8% every year. We need to be able to put in place an energy mix that can be affordable, accessible, and available. And natural gas can do all that. I think I will just stop at this point, and as we progress, I will speak to it a bit more. Thank you.
Chichi, thank you very much for your passionate position on our readiness to transition using gas. Dan, I know you have a presentation to make. So Dan, you have the floor.
Yeah, it's not just a presentation. I just wanted to use that as a guide.
Okay.
Yeah. So the question on my end is production of batteries completely free of oil and gas inputs? And the question here is definitely not. So if you look at the overall system of batteries, so I'm sure you guys know already that the main points of discussion these days, especially in Europe, China, is with electromobility. However, if you're looking at the input of what is going into those batteries, it's not completely free of oil and gas. And this goes also to the toothpaste that you use, or your pharmaceuticals. So at the moment, this is not completely free of oil and gas, especially if you look at what goes into it, because you need oil and gas input for the production of batteries, be it from the mining or from the components that go into the batteries. So one of the components that go into the batteries is, for example, the battery separator. And the battery separator comes from polypropylene or polyethylene, and polyethylene comes from oil and gas. So if you ask the question, can batteries be completely free from oil and gas input? Today, that is not the case. But they're trying to transition into a case where the input from oil and gas is minimal as possible, but that would take a long time. And one of those options could be, for example, where you say you produce fuels from clean tech. So you have a solar plant, you use electrolysis to get the hydrogen out, and then from carbon capture, you get the CO2, you combine those two to get your fuel, and that fuel can now be used to replace ethylene, for example, that comes from oil and gas. But please know that this is a very expensive adventure, which means that this will take a long time. So in a nutshell, at the moment, oil and gas inputs to batteries is still going to be high. And it's still going to be that way for the next 10 years, of course, I think. But in the long run, this input will start decreasing. So I think this is a coexistence that we need to work with. But in general, I think it's not a case of oil and gas or batteries. We just try, as Chichi said, if you also look into gas, everything has to be like an ecosystem. So renewables cannot exist without gas, because renewable, for example, is not, or is intermittent. You always need something that can stand by. So in general, yes, there is a clamor for clean tech, but we have to do this in a more sustainable way going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. At least you've raised the issue of the intermittent nature of renewables, but at least the need for gas and then renewables to exist as an ecosystem, and I think that's very clear. Michael, I'll come to you. Can we conduct our operations, exploration, production operations, in an environmentally in a sustainable manner? Can we actually do that? Can we do that? Can we make it pollution free? Can we do that?
Yes, Benga, I think we can. The answer to that is yes. It's first off having the will. There's a way. So if I have to speak to that, there are known technologies and processes in the industry today that result in zero emissions. The strategy, that the industry is deploying in response to the low carbon transition has been developing decarbonized oil and gas. There are opportunities to reduce the carbon and climate impacts of oil and gas production through efficiency improvements and new technologies. So these are the pointers to the fact that, yes, it is doable. Now, most of the focus here is also on direct emissions that emanate from upstream oil and gas production systems. And a few technologies are available in public space. You have methane emissions efficiency. This is pretty much very economical for natural gas producers. You have zero emission productions. It's a process deployed for electrification of upstream oil and gas production or LNG production as well. You have carbon capture technology, which I think you mentioned earlier. It's another avenue for decarbonizing hydrocarbon production through capture at the wellheads or at sources where the hydrocarbon are being generated. Lastly, you have hydrogen process, which I think Dan touched on a bit. And it's one of the most promising pathways for decarbonizing petroleum. You either talk about the blue hydrogen method or the green hydrogen method. They all result in zero emission liquid fuels with greater energy. So it's doable. We just need to be determined to follow it through. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Chichi, I'll come back to you. And I like to. I know you've been quite involved in NGA, the Natural Gas Association, and
Yes.
so how do we evolve? And I'd like you to look at it from an industry, government, academia perspective. How can we evolve this? Not just a gas policy on paper, but how can we actually implement a drive which will enable us to harness our gas resources here, for economic development and also to power this nation? How can we do that? What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Wenga. You've mentioned the NGA. Okay, so just to be certain, the NGA is a body that comprises members across the industry and even members that don't even. We've got even banks that are members. We've got people from insurance and all that. Now, the primary focus of the NGA is to drive advocacy. Like when I started saying this, I said Nigeria is more of a gas nation and is a crude nation. Now we're being very deliberate about the narrative that we're driving. We're being very deliberate to the degree that we even have study groups in the NGA. So we collaborate with companies, we advocate, we engage. Part of the things we see in the oil and gas industry are policies. Sometimes you have policy inconsistencies. You have policies that are generated that just don't work. They look nice for the photo ops, but the minute you bring them into businesses, you bring them for investors, they don't work. So we try to do more engagement. We try to engage at the government level. We try to engage in conferences. We try to be deliberate. Even to the extent where we even try to get involved with universities and say, look, send them over. We've got the what we call the NGA learning solutions. We've got learning groups who focus on the use of gas processing, transmission, power sector, gas policy making. And we have technocrats, we have business people, we have people who have done these things, because if we don't stay in the forefront, sometimes you do this and then it looks like there's nothing happening, but it's slowly but surely getting there. So we've got a whole gamut of issues that we continuously try to engage the Ministry of Petroleum Resources on. We try to engage DPR. We try to engage members. We have members come forth, with issues that they are dealing with. You have members who are upstream end of the value chain. You have members dealing with middle stream. You have members downstream. And that entire value chain has to be unbundled. That entire value chain is a handshake. So in the gas industry, we call it a handshake industry. It's not like your typical crude oil business. The gas does not have that kind of too much wiggle room that you have with crude. So you need to be extremely careful. If you break anything in between there, the liabilities are so many. So we need to get a whole lot of things right. You hear us speaking about gas pricing. The pricing must work. That's where you hear us speak to willing buyer, willing seller. If we're going to encourage investors to come in, like I always say, this is not the Red Cross. The numbers must make sense. You must have the economics making sense, and we work and we bring we bring people's experiences to the table. We want to see your economics. We also want to put in it a bit of what's the word to use, patriotism. So we want to say, hey, we are Nigerians. Look, this is Nigeria built by Nigerians. Everything is not so much of too much profit, but how can we get this to work? Where is the middle room? Those are all the conversations we continue to engage with. I serve on the current council of NGA. And this for me gives me a wide range, gives council members a wide range of a view of the industry, speaking to the real-time issues. Like I said, we don't have too much of an experience as it relates to crude oil business in Nigeria as it is. So on daily basis, we have to deal with these things and try to be at the table when discussions are happening, so that when these policies are being formed, we engage even at this, at the higher, what's it called, the Senate, at the House, just to speak to them, let them know, because these are the guys that are forming policies on our behalf, and then they form things and bring it down. When you take a look at it, it just doesn't work. So for us, these are the different ways of engaging, and then even on the soft side of things, even in our little spaces, we talk to this, we run it on the social media, and just generally, move advocacy across board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chichi. I'll take you up later on the study group thing you mentioned. You know that the essence for CID is actually not just to have bring you together, but to foster the linkage between the industry and the academia. And of course, the University of Lagos here, that's one basis why I'm having that. So I'll come back to you on that. Emeka, you are the core policy guy here. And I'd like you to probably share, Chichi has mentioned some challenges they have, or we have in Nigeria, to making that transition, in this case, utilizing gas. I'd like you to take it to a broader perspective. What are the challenges? You can also bring in scenario clients, apart from the US and Canada. What are the challenges to making this transition? And you can also shed some light into how we can surmount these challenges.
Thank you very much, Wenga. Do I have the floor now? I hope I didn't interrupt anything. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Wenga. There are, of course, roadblocks, right? Chichi has mentioned some of the issues. For example, policy somersault, the investment climate at this time. But I also want to talk about a few other roadblocks. For example, our mindset, which is the erroneous belief that because Africa contributes only about 4% of the global emissions, so we don't need to do anything pretty much to reduce emissions, or we need to do very little. It's incredibly important that our prime focus should be on reducing our energy poverty, deploying energy resources so that we can at least even improve our consumption of energy. But when we are thinking about scaling our energy resources, we should understand that, one, the effects of climate change is not restricted to a geographical location. We should also understand that these effects are here with us. And so lack of awareness of the harmful effects of climate change on our economy would affect our economy adversely. It's already affecting us so much. Look at different lives and property that is being lost as a result of gas flaring and its attendant consequences. How about dirty cooking stoves and how it affects gender, especially women and their health? You should also look at the effects of climate change with respect to rising sea levels, increased heat, especially at night, and the flooding that these things cause, how it wipes away farmlands, leading to increase in insurgency, and a whole lot of other impacts. It's here with us. So that mindset, we really need to, like Chichi rightly mentioned, lots of advocacy to help people to understand. Most importantly, policymakers to understand that this is here with us. And our overdependence in crude oil, which has led to our lack of diversification of the economy away from crude oil, is another major challenge that we have. And we also believe that this crude oil is here to stay, which is not which is not true, as it were. We also need to encourage effective collaboration of all stakeholders. Chichi had mentioned that as well as the other panelists. Government should lead the way in this regard. Most of the times, and if you look at how advanced societies have been able to engage in their transition and also manage it, and is always leading the way, especially when it comes to policy stance, and it has to be very clear, setting clear targets. We signed the Paris Accord, but we have to be very clear with respect to our targets, with definite timelines to achieve these things, and then that will lead to moral suasion, as it were, on the private sector, including all these IOCs who are, helping to fund transition in different parts of the world, but not doing the same here in Nigeria. They would eventually have to fall in line if they see that the government is standing very clearly when it comes to their policy. The PIB really has to come out, it really has to come out. And research as well. The academia really have to collaborate better with research centers, policy think tanks, both in Nigeria and internationally, so that they can stay in the cutting edge of research in this area. And also civil society and the general public, there has to be like a handshake, as it were, to engage all these areas. Data is also very important. You search for data sometimes on emissions and also on the energy consumption. You might not get up-to-date data, Also scaling the capacity of skilled professionals in this space, not just for engineers. It's a multifaceted area, and we should really understand that. And most importantly, policy support. There is no low carbon transition, energy transition that has happened anywhere in the world without governments massively supporting in terms of tax incentive, encourage the private sector, include even the solar and wind and all the renewables that have scaled in different parts of the world, scaled as a result of direct government incentives like investment tax credits, production tax credits, different tax breaks. You talk about the low carbon fuel standards in California and in other parts of the world, and the carbon tax and all that. It's really very important, or else they will not scale. Another way the government can also provide policy support is by creating economic opportunity zones for these companies, possibly manage so they can manufacture these solar panels in Nigeria. So they can, and that way they can reduce the additional capex that they've invested in low carbon technology, and it can help to reduce de-risk their investment. Also, partial risk guarantees is something that can be issued as well, so that investments can be de-risked and various investors can come from outside the country, as well as homegrown innovations to ensure that this is achieved. Government contract processes needs to reflect preference or insistence on low carbon, like cement or steel, or and reducing gas flaring, especially also when it comes to construction. All this should be reflected in the policy stance and their contract processes as well, so that the investments of energy companies in this space can be guaranteed. Thank you.
Yeah, Emeka, thank you. I think you moved a bit into dance space towards the end of your discussion, and
sorry, Dan. Sorry about that.
no, it's
Oh,
it's
good.
fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I know that at BASF, chemistry drives you want to use chemistry to better the lives of men. And I know that Germany has, of course, made a lot of advances when it comes to PVs, photovoltaics. In Nigeria, I know we're catching up. We're catching up, but how do you see what's the outlook of renewables in Nigeria? How are we catching up to it in Nigeria?
Yeah, so I think Emeka already touched on really good points there. So if you look at Nigeria as a whole, we are really not doing very well in terms of catching up on the renewable space. And it's really a pity, because if you look at solar and you look at the irradiation that we have in solar, we have it in abundance. But you ask the question, why is nothing happening, right? Germany has a solar irradiation of about, let's say, 1,000 kilowatt hour per kilowatt peak. Nigeria has almost double of that, right? But as of today, Germany has about 50 gigawatts installed solar capacity. Now, if you look at Nigeria, we have an installed capacity overall of not even up to 15 gigawatt hours of gigawatts, right? So the question is, why is this not happening? The outlook is not looking very good, and a lot of stuff needs to be done to get that up to space. I was doing a quick calculation, right? If we look at the willingness to actually transition to renewable energies, I was doing a quick calculation. Now, we are so used to generators, right? So generators at home, a lot of noise, a lot of pollution. If you were to power your generator, right, every day, and you're paying 1,000 naira for fuel, right, and you're doing that every day, let's say every second day, a month, you're spending up to 15,000 naira for generator, and you do that for just 50, let's say 6 hours, right? If you transfer that to, let's say, to euros, at the end of the month, you'll be paying around, let's say, 38 euros per month. In Germany, right? In Germany, they pay, let's say, 78 euros per month for a whole month of 24 hours electricity. Now you're paying 35 for just 6 hours per day, right? So at the end, you see that even with using generators, we are spending more than people in Germany. Now, don't even talk about that €1 cost. €1 is equivalent to I don't know what the exchange rate is today, 500 naira. So the purchasing power is low. We're paying more for electricity, and then we're not doing anything about it. So we are still yet to catch up, and there's still a lot of stuff to be done. And Emeka really pointed this out. We need a good policy environment. The ease of doing business needs to be clear, right? Now, Germany itself, before Germany got to where it is today, there were lots of subsidies. So they subsidized feed-in tariffs, they subsidized the system, and what that did was there was a peak, right? There was a spike in installations. Everybody was installing because there was subsidies. People were, if you're giving me subsidies, I'm going to do this, right? Now, Nigeria, you don't expect to go from zero to whatever you want to be without actually coming in with good subsidies or with good systems. The last time we said we wanted to go an auction system that we auctioned around, I think, 1,000 gigawatts. Till today, those PPAs nothing has happened to those PPAs. Now, which investor would come to Nigeria and invest in large solar plants, right? With this kind of environment, nobody's going to come in. So we need to have a clear system in place. We need to have a clear policy in place of what we want. If it is about subsidizing the system, we have a lot of solar energy. Like, there's a lot of it. You can subsidize the system, make people get used to this, and at the end, we're going to benefit from this in general. So I think in general, we are still lagging behind. There's still a lot of work to be done. And I hope that we can set a good space, a good policy environment, a good environment even for external investors or internal investors to invest in the space to help us go to where we want to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Unfortunately, we don't have anybody from the government, on the panel, so except for a few guys here who might become future senators, you know. So let's take it that we're speaking into the future, not too far away. Chichi, I'd like to come back to you. The next set of questions I'll be asking are actually dovetailing into the implications of transitioning on the educational space, especially on young graduates and undergraduates. So, Chichi, I'd like you to, how do we prepare students of petroleum and gas engineering for this transition? How do we prepare them to get into the industry, to join your drive in harnessing massive gas resources? Over to you, Chichi.
Okay, Banga, thank you very much. This is where I would like to start from a very funny angle. I believe in life, everything is about being deliberate, yeah? So we have mentioned things the government has to do. We have mentioned things we have to do in our own spaces. In countries where they have been serious about these things, they've set some visions, be it short-term, medium, long-term. They have set milestones. They've been very deliberate about it. And then how do we get there? How do we make this happen? Now, bringing that back to your question, the academia and probably even the private sector and associations like ours and companies like even ours need to get deliberate. And then we begin to look at how do we put together data? How do we put together information? How do we put information that is accessible, credible information that can be reached, by even these upcoming young ones? I give you something that is funny. I walked up to our front desk lady one day and I said to her, do you know what the NLNG is? And she said, Ma, what you talking about? I said, no, the NLNG. She said, so I give you an assignment now for the weekend. This is Friday. You come back on Monday. You're going to tell me what basic information. We need to start getting deliberate how we get these ones, the young ones, to understand what we're trying to say. So the academia can work hand in hand with the private sector and then see how we can create hubs, research hubs that we have credible information that companies can reach out to, investors can reach out to. Even at the NGA, we have been working on that to see how we become an authority in the industry where you can fall back on for infographics, demographics, whatever is needed to help investor decision making, data that is credible enough to drive in the direction we're seeking. So for us, you asked, we have the learning solutions at NGA. That learning solution is a group of study groups that focuses on power sector, the entire gas value chain as it relates to even the technical end. So we've got people pitching in from different companies. I think we have someone from Seplat here. We have people coming from Seplat. We have people coming from Nigerian Gas Company. Excuse me. And gas company all over the industry, bringing in their wealth of experience in the gas business. And this is the experience that is, at your fingertips. I mean, I'm readily available. I still hope to continue serving on the council of the NGA. The whole idea is to just continue to keep it out there, because if we're going to get the kind of move we're talking about, it will start from the very foundation. All right, it will start from the very basics, the building blocks. Those are the students we're speaking to. So the academia needs to be deliberate, even the kind of courses you are churning out. So do we have courses in university now that speak to gas technology, midstream, downstream? Like I said, there's so much focus on crude. What are we saying about midstream facilities? What are we saying about gas processing plants? What are we saying about midstream? What are we saying about refinery? Sorry, not refinery, but gas to CNG. What are we talking? Virtual pipeline. Do these people understand these things? This is how we can get gas all over the place. We have a deficit of infrastructure. How are we talking about CNG, LNG? The world has moved to even getting gas in stranded areas. Nothing is rocket science, trust me. Just ask around. I mean, I was at the gas conference, World Gas Conference, about I think it was about 3 years ago. You won't believe the kind of technology that is available out there, compact technology that is readily available for anyone who is serious. So it is high time we understand that these things cost across every strata, from the top executive management, lower level, guys at the office shop floor, guys in the schools, everywhere. We need to be deliberate about it. And so, yeah, putting myself out there, anyone can reach me at the NGA. And then, like I said, we are also ready as a body to assist in any way. Thank you.
Okay, Chichi, I'll be the one to reach out to you. I
That's
can
fine.
assure you that I'll be the one. I'll be the link person. I think I even I attended a webinar on the gas network code. Yeah, so I attended that. I have not joined NGA, but I'll be the one to reach out to you. I'll take you up on that. Don't worry.
We'll be very happy, you know, to assist in any way we can and provide any kind of information that we can, you know, so that we can, you know, typically just get people to understand how these things work and then, you know, generally move the industry, you know, along. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Before I come to Emeka, Mike, I would like to come to you. While Chichi was making her submission, Seplat came up, you know, and you're representing Seplat here. How, considering the graduates who probably have joined you in the past 5 years, you know,
Okay.
how would you assess their preparedness or their basic knowledge level and competence level? How would you assess their readiness to add value to the industry? You know.
Okay. I mean, the one thing is sure. There's a strong development plan within Seplat that progresses graduate trainees over a period of 4 years, and that has been robust over the years and has empowered. We have had about 3 sets or so, and clearly they have been empowered through the system and are a number of them are well positioned to add value through this within the system, within the industry. And in addition to having that core development program for young graduates, you also need to speak or communicate directly to the individual. And how do you do that? There has to be a deliberate culture or habit to develop oneself personally. You know, you have to consciously stay abreast with recent trends and innovation within your field. You have the opportunity. You're exposed to projects from the get-go. You have your desktop knowledge. You have your field experience to cover. So yes, that deliberate attempt to make you a rounded professional, and that's within your working space. Now, you also have to, within your technical space, you also have to grow yourself professionally, and that is what we are also at the forefront of doing. The company sponsors over 100 members as who are professional members of Society of Petroleum Engineers. And what does this do? This provides leverage to mentorship. It provides leverage to resources within SPE that help to grow the resource base. It helps to keep members in touch with recent trends. So these are areas where we're deliberate, you know, just like Chichi said, we have to be deliberate about getting young ones to remain relevant. You know, there are a number of opportunities that abound. You have free training courses that are constantly offered by Seplat. You have to deliberately attend technical meetings. SP Lagos section runs technical meetings. Other sections across Nigeria run technical meetings, online webinars. You have to deliberately encourage young ones to have this professional development as well. There's the NGA, there's SPE, and there are a number of other professional organizations that we deliberately have to, as individuals, participate in, you know, develop a conscious effort to grow yourself personally, in addition to what a structured system offers you. So, I mean, what is key is that one just has to keep developing himself such that you always remain relevant within the industry, within your environment, and you can better impact and add value to the system, the overall. Thanks, Benga.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Emeka, now I'll come to you. When you were making an earlier submission, you talked about recent research when it comes to renewables, energy transition. Can you shed some more light on that? Well, especially and why I'm asking this question is because a number of petroleum engineering undergraduates are developing this sense of apathy that, am I in the right course? Should I not just turn out as an energy engineer? It puts them in a dilemma, especially when it comes to postgraduate studies. So I'd like you to look at that and how does the petroleum and gas undergraduate and fresh graduate position himself in going forward?
Thank you very much, Benga. There is really no need to be apathetic as to the program, the petroleum engineering program at all. The requisite skills that is needed in this transition is also available and obviously taught during this program. But what is really key to think about is that the energy industry is immensely dynamic and it's also a science with a lot of moving parts. And so, yes, we do need petroleum engineers. But speaking to being deliberate and also being at the cutting edge of this immensely dynamic and transiting industry, it's important that the petroleum engineers and the students are thinking about these things and looking for ways to really position themselves. And so, as a petroleum engineer, there is nothing wrong in thinking about developing your skill sets in other areas in this entire value chain. So, for example, petroleum engineering is just a tiny subset of the immense skill sets that we need in professionals in this area. We have an example of a few of us here who moved from, I'm not one of them actually, but my case is quite unique. Before I talk about my case, we have a few of us who are engineers, but are inherently spending their time on business development right now. We have some of them in the panel here. We have Chichi, who is doing a lot of business development as well. We need geologists, we need economists, because you need to make sure that the science makes economic sense. But they would have to work with these engineers to make sure that they really have a good understanding of these of this industry. So petroleum engineers extremely relevant. Policymakers needed. Researchers needed, because we need to make sure piece all these frameworks into the interlinked sectors in the Nigerian economy. We have someone like Dan who is developing business models to ensure market penetration works in the solar energy industry. It's a multifaceted industry. We need communication and public relations so that the public understands what is happening and get the civil society and the public involved as well. So there is a lot of room for you to transit, utilizing the skills that you have been given as petroleum engineers to put yourself out there and develop yourself. I strongly believe that development is a self thing, right? And yes, you need a lot of support, especially, for example, maybe energy companies need to open up their doors some more. Seplat, for example, according to what Mike is saying, is doing a lot of work in this area. But more energy companies and other companies as well, both in indigenous and IOCs, would need to open up their doors more to these young ones. Take internships, as it were, possibly volunteer jobs, so that you can learn new things in this space. The advent of COVID-19 make the world a lot more interconnected technologically. So you can sit down here and listen to webinars in different parts of the world, free webinars. Like, for example, in the Center on Global Energy Policy, where I work, you have webinars almost on a daily basis. And so I myself listen to different webinars from different, reputable research institutions who are talking about different areas in the energy transition. every day. Sometimes I'm in different sessions in, throughout the rest of the day. These are things, ways of putting yourself out there. There's also a lot of green financing to support research and development in this area globally. Learn how to write grants. That's a soft skill that will come in very handy. Learn how to write grants so you can have access to these financing and think about ways to innovate. Feel free to veer off your specialized field to a different area in this immensely large space. I studied economics. I work with a lot of engineers, a lot of geologists, a lot of people from different, there are also environmental law professionals in the Center on Global Energy Policy. So I work with people with diverse skill sets. I've come to learn a lot about what they do. I need the petroleum engineers. I need to learn a lot from them, and I've been doing that. I need the geologists. I need the people who are in business development. I need the researchers. I need all of that to piece everything together to ensure that we put this energy transition to life. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mecca. And Dan, I recall an incident, an experience I had. Two of my students came to my office, and they were quite downcast. Their expectations of the petroleum and gas engineering program wasn't living up to or has been let down. They were quite entrepreneurial in outlook. They thought they would come in, probably be handed some projects, some hands-on stuff. And I would like to put it to you: what's the space for budding engineers who would like to play in the renewable space, for instance? Of course, we've expressed our displeasure with the government policy-wise, but how can young engineers begin to play in the renewable space? Of course, which we are vasting. So I'd like you to paint some picture around entrepreneurship, business opportunities, and the way the young engineers should begin to think.
Yeah, thanks, Benga, for the question. So I looked at this from a different angle, and if the team can share one of the presentations I shared, I think that would be nice. I think the second to last page that I sent to give a good picture. But before that, I just wanted to zoom in on what Emeka just said. So just to give a good example, I studied petroleum engineering, but I've never worked one day as a petroleum engineer. I am in a completely different field. Yeah, this one. Yeah, thank you. So I'm in a completely different field. I worked with solar, energy storage. I worked in finance. So just to zoom in on what Emeka said, so you should, in a way, look at the space you are, look at where the industry is going, and then see, okay, what skill set do I need to get me there, right? So I quickly joined the call yesterday, and we were talking a lot about data. They were talking a lot about unmanned drill rigs and stuff. So you could say, okay, it seems as if data would play a huge role in the future. Can I gain skills as a petroleum engineer that will make me a good data scientist? Now, imagine combining those two skill sets, right? So you understand what is happening in the field. You understand everything about petroleum engineering, but you also have the added advantage, right, of being able to know what to do with the immense amount of data that will be generated in the future. So this is where you just look at and say, okay, yeah, how can I combine these two skill sets to get me where I want to go? Now, if I now jump to the question that was posed to me, what can you do, right? There are a lot of stuff you can do. Nigeria is, we've not even scratched the surface, right? If you look at the renewable space. So what I decided to do is I looked at what is happening outside, right? I looked at what is happening in Germany, in Europe, and there are a lot of companies doing great stuff. A lot of times you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? So you can just look at, okay, what is happening in Germany? These guys are advanced. What are they doing, right? I just said, okay, yeah, there is this company, V-Chiller, doing a cooling technology to chill beverages for less than 50% of the energy required. Now, you look at Nigeria, it's very hot. We need this, right? What can you do in that space? Can you come up with something similar? Now, if you can do that, the sky is the limit, right? you can also say, okay, what other stuff is there? In solar, you have the problem of Nigeria, that, okay, the purchasing power of people are not the same, right? What can you do in the solar home system space, right? How can you make that more accessible? What can you do in smart metering if you say, okay, fine, solar is intermittent, and our transmission grid is not good enough to accommodate this? Can you come up with a solution, right? Or you say solar is not, the sun shines in Nigeria, let's say maximum 6-7 hours, right? So you need to store the energy. What can you do in the energy storage space? So there is this company that is working on a software to better use energy storage for a better ecosystem. So there are tons of stuff. Michael and I think Emeka also mentioned about carbon capture. This is a very strong research area, but carbon capture is extremely expensive. It is not economical yet. Can you think of something that you can you look at the research that is being done in that space and think of, okay, how can I contribute? How can you come up with something that can help foster carbon capture? Electrolyzers, there are tons of stuff. Seriously, if you just look at the market of renewables, there are tons of stuff that needs improvement. And if you just, so what I would advise you to do is look at the landscape, look at companies. I just mentioned, I think, up to like 5 of them here or 6 of them on the left-hand side, and you can see what they do. Some of them are working to digitalize the PV monitoring space. So just look at the landscape, do a bit of Googling and say, which companies are they out there? What are they doing? Then you look at Nigeria. Where are we? What can I do in that space to get Nigeria to where it wants to be, right? So which is why I say, what can we do for Nigeria in a whole? That if I even look at this, you would say, okay, yeah, the millions of ideas. I think the only limitation now is our capabilities, right? What are our capabilities? What is the support that we have, and how can we get us there? So I would just close this part and say, there are tons of stuff that we can do. Let's be a bit more exploratory and then see how we can contribute our best to get us to where we want to be. And I'll just say, yeah, I wish you all the best in common with that. But if you can do that, the sky is the limit. Thank you.
Dan, thank you very much. But you can't wriggle out of it. You know? I can remember when you were expressing your frustration with government as regards policy. One of the our discussion is coming to a head right now. Basically, what does the graduate need to do? What does the student need to do? How does he need to position himself? How does he need to play in the space? And it's time for us to concretize some of these points, or else we would leave the panel, probably just having a nice discussion. And so it's time for actionable points. I would stay clear of government for now, basically looking at probably what the academia, can do, and probably what the student can do for himself in real terms, And so what I like you to do, I think you can chime in here, and what I'll do, I'll propose, and then I know that I won't force you to make commitments on behalf of your company, that may be pushing you too far. Try to push you as far as I can as an individual, and of course, probably leveraging on your company profile and facilities. Can you, and Dan, I'd like to start with you now. I'm not starting you. I'll start with you this time around. What do you see? How do you see us setting up a study group, pilot plant, something in the University of Lagos, which can, like a little hub, or have something like that in Nigeria already, Now this is from an academic standpoint, How can we do something here that would probably catalyze the transition, or at least catalyze it? What commitment can you make, Dan?
What commitment can I make? So I did not fully understand the question. So is it for me, myself, a commitment I can make or an idea of what the University of Lagos can do in that space?
You can give us an idea, and then I'll know how to take you up from there.
Okay. I can't really say to be specific, but in terms of what the University of Lagos could do in this space is probably what you've mentioned, right? Setting up probably a small research group that can already today start looking at where we are, and then look at what we want to achieve. And then from there now say, okay, yeah, these are the points we've decided that we want to achieve, and then draw actionable points. Until then, I think we need to draw up actionable point of what we want to do or what you want to do as University of Lagos before you can now say, okay, I want to set up a small pilot for a specific area, right? So it could either be in one of those areas I've mentioned, which would come up in the discussion you have, or it could also be in that was a good point that was mentioned yesterday, electronic waste, that the guy from Shell that said, okay, there's a lot of electronic waste, Nigeria don't have the capacity for that, and that is always been sent out or been exported out of Nigeria, right? So this is a very good area where you could say, okay, yeah, it's University of Lagos, can we set up a small group that can look into the practicalities of making this a possibility in Nigeria? And then from there, we'll pick it up. So for now, I cannot really give concrete points of where I can come in. But once we have this actionable group, we can now look at where do we want to focus on. And then we pick up that 1 point or 2 points and then start working on it and also say, okay, yeah, what research grants do we need? Do we need support from whoever to support this pilot scale, and then see how we can get that going.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. Emeka, you were nodding seriously. You touched on grants, external grants to fund energy efficiency projects, clean energy projects. Can you just elaborate on what grants are available internationally to young entrepreneurs or who would like to play in this space?
Thank you very much. Off the top of my head, I can think about the Climate Innovation Fund, which is one fund that ensures that different projects in this space, demonstration projects, pilot projects, research and development up to that level, can get financing. We also have Sustainable Energy for All, whose chairperson is Nigerian, Damilola Ogunbiyi. The IMF, the World Bank, they have seen the importance of setting up climate change offices, and because they've seen the impact these has on income output and employment, GDP of countries, and so they provide funding to in terms of research and development, pilot, scaling technology in this area and all that, and there are tons and tons of others as well, even smaller organizations, as it were, who are not really foreign donor organizations. So these are areas that can be taken advantage of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emeka. Mike, I'll come to you. Right now, we're just trying to put our thoughts regards how we can actually ensure that we leave this panel session with some, not just things on our mind, but some actionable points. And what are your thoughts you've talked about what you do in CEPLAT, but I want you to look at the bridge between the university and the industry. What are your thoughts as regards how we can bridge that gap to ensure that we make this transition well, and we also contribute to this?
I mean, typically it's we have some companies that institute research centers or ICT centers within institutions. That's something that is practical and can still be advanced forward. Also, we probably need to ask ourselves when we say actionable steps, what are we doing within the academia as well to kind of restructure our course content to reflect the realities of the industry, of the transition. You know, are we still delivering content that are stereotyped to, you know, theoretical dictates that have existed for quite a while? Or are we being dynamic with what we're delivering so far? And I mean, deliberately exposing as young students, ourselves within the industry, as well as to how are we transitioning? What do we need to adjust with what has been in the past, and how do we need to marry it with what is presently obtainable? So those kind of deliberate adjustments to the curriculum that we deliver in school can also be very helpful. And then, I mean, what we're doing as a professional organization today is also very helpful and should also be continually encouraged. And that is deliberately creating opportunities like this where awareness is created, information is disseminated, students join online programs, participate in webinars like this, workshops, conferences. These are actionable steps towards the growing awareness, the change we're talking about. Because, I mean, in other places where it is about such deliberate steps, awareness, awareness, awareness. And then you get into those deliberate actions that bridge the gap in terms of indicating the realities within the industry, as well as the old theories we have been used to. So, I mean, when we put all of that in perspective, and as well, and a few of us have touched on opportunities such as industrial training, graduate training programs. These are also opportunities where there's that cross-connect between the academia and the students and the industry to better foster the future, you know, to better prepare us and the industry at large for the transformation we're talking, or the transition we're talking about. So that's the way I see it, Benga. Thank you.
Yeah, Mike. Chichi has laid the marker down with the use of that word deliberate. You know, I think the deliberate is one word that has stood out here, probably even beyond transitioning, renewables, and gas. And I will just like you. I would like your thoughts as we begin to bring this to a head on specific research that we could do at our end, you know, that could complement what you're doing at the NGA, that's the Nigerian Gas Association, and also in your drive towards advocacy. Give us your thoughts at this regard, how we could also play in this space.
Okay, Banga, thank you. Yes, we need to be deliberate. So specifically speaking, you could start. So, for instance, I had this conversation yesterday. I think we must have all heard this. There was a gas explosion at somewhere in Ishaga or so, and I sat down and I said, what can we begin to even do, even from a safety perspective in the industry? What can we begin to do as it relates to safety? Gas and safety go hand in hand. All right. I mean, this is off the top of my head. You're asking for areas you think you can focus on. You may need to begin to look at what kind of courses you can run, you know, along those lines. Safety, gas as it is. As we begin to speak more for the, you know, to increase the utilization of gas in Nigeria, we need to also look at the safety. And then, of course, there's an angle we'll deal with the regulatory, so DPR, SON. And then the other things you can look at would be, really, so for us, most of the assets we're dealing with now, they are brownfield assets. So even on OML 42, where I work with Nekonde, we have inherited a whole lot of old infrastructure that we have tried to bring up to speed. We can't begin to look at courses that may want to deal, with that. Someone here, I think it was Emeka, that just said we need to, how do we start transitioning? So associated gas, there's a link between it and crude oil driven. So whether I'm talking to compressors, whether I'm talking to glycol units, NAG modules, AG modules, can we begin to be very specific and draw the attention? So where do these courses come in? How do we talk about material balancing? How does it affect my gas production? Those kind of courses, we can be deliberate about it. Then thirdly, the power sector. So as it stands today in Nigeria, for all the solutions we're talking about, the mix, energy mix and all that, gas remains a huge part of this conversation as it relates to industrialization, driving the power sector. Overall, I think we've got just 5,000 megawatts that is feeding over 200 million people. That's not sustainable. But so what is the issue? The power sector is just engulfed in a serious lacuna. We need to begin to unbundle it. What are the issues? Okay, you can begin to look at the association and begin to say, I mean, there's we have understood that, see, we're not going to continue doing things the same way and expect different results. We need to get creative in the power sector. So how do captive power projects work? Embedded? Can we have smaller pockets of power projects? So what are the technologies that are required to support those kind of power projects? Get a group of off-takers. You see, with the power sector, what you have is how from the upstream to the downstream, how that gas flows, how it is transmitted, the losses that are made along the line, how they are accounted for, and how that entire thing metamorphoses and ends up at a business, and how it flows back all the way back to the upstream. That's the problem you have with the power sector as it is in Nigeria. Those are areas you can begin to look at. And then lastly, even in the direction of making these students think in the entrepreneurship, line of things. So yes, we have been speaking to the fact that some of us here, and many people anyway, have started out with a technical background. So personally, I'm a chemical engineer, but I found that along the line, I had to begin to know how these things tie into the economics, because you see, everything we talk about is a business that must make sense. So you need to begin to talk to these students. They need to understand, when you're doing things at the technical end, it must make sense for me at this other end as a business. All right, how does that technology work? So we begin to know, are there safer ways of doing these things? Are there cheaper ways of doing these things? At the end of the day, even for us, we talk about gas tariffs at the end of the day. Are there technologies that can get this gas to market cheaper? So these are at the top of my head, these are just some of the areas you can begin to look at. Like I said, reach out to me. We will sit down, we'll let you know what is already, what we already have on board, and then see how we can just unbundle this entire thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chichi. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Emeka. We have a few questions that came in while the panel was on. And okay, I'd like to take this one. When is it possible that innovation can change the future? Sorry, just a minute. I'm trying to get a hold of the question.
Okay.
How quick? Okay, I think there's a question that relates to innovation that has been implemented to change the future of energy utilization. I know we've touched a bit on carbon capture, hydrogen, but I think this is asking for some more details, Maybe I'll let the guys ask the question.
The question is that how quick are
Okay. This is more of a project management related question. How quick are innovations implemented when it comes to oil and gas operations, renewables. So more of talking about how quickly can interventions be made. I think probably can just give a general thought so I get with other questions on board. Okay. So there's a question coming here that what ways can we develop ourselves? What should we be looking at? Where should we channel our energies? You know, we've talked about this, but I think some specifics are being sought. I know I was either Dan or so made reference to data science. What are the other skill sets that an engineering student should be looking at to develop himself? So can we just touch on specifics? Let's start with Emeka, and then we'll allow each person to make a contribution.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not a project manager, but talking about how quickly innovation can be made to scale deployment and development in this area, I would want to say that we are fortunate right now that we are still in the process of developing and scaling our energy sources. You know, as against a lot of developing economies where they are spending a chunk of their energy investments in infrastructure to retrofit existing energy infrastructure and to make them more sustainable. But we don't need to do that. We are still scaling, and so we don't also need to reinvent the wheel. But we are standing at a pedestal where we can leapfrog technology because the science in this is proven, the technology is mature, and it gives us the huge capacity for us to scale quicker and get it right the first time. And so we'll look at our areas of energy endowment, look at our processes, look at process emissions, look at scope 1, scope 2 emissions, look at the energy emissions from heat sources. How can we provide our energy or produce our energy in a more sustainable manner? How can we do that? We can adapt. I'm not saying adopt fully, but we can always adapt from what developed societies have done. Transport takes a chunk of Nigeria's CO2 emissions, about 55%. What do we do in this area? We've spoken about EVs, we've spoken about using natural gas to power some of our heavy duty trucks and possibly blue or green hydrogen as well, our city buses, and trying to decarbonize these areas. We've spoken about energy industries and power and the industrial emissions as well. We are fortunate right now. The frog technology scale quicker. Solar, wind energy, renewable energy at this time is, getting super cheap as compared to before. The technology is not rocket science. We just need to scale quickly, and it wouldn't take time at all. But with respect to skill sets, we have mentioned lots of skill sets that you need to develop, but soft skills are also very important. Skills like I mentioned, like grant writing. But most importantly, it's important that we keep our eyes on the ball and keep looking at that moving ball in the energy transition sector. Keep finding out where it's moving to so that we can see areas where we can personally get interested in developing ourselves.
Thank you very much. Dan, any thoughts?
No, I think Emeka touched on very good points here. I would just add to say, in terms of innovation, you cannot really draw a timeline. But the good point is we haven't gotten to that inflection point yet where everything just catapults up. So there's still a good chunk of what can be done to get us there. And in terms of skill sets, just a good skill set would be, for example, as a petroleum engineer, to look at petroleum economics, right? And to make sure you fully understand what's happening there. And a good idea of petroleum economics, not just the surface, right? But to make sure that you understand the economics of everything that happened, right from the field development or whatever to when you decommission your field. The good thing about that is you don't only learn about petroleum economics as a whole, but you also learn about economics in other areas that you can apply also in renewable energies, right? And then you can use this in anything you want to do. So I think that could help a bit in terms of specific skill sets that you want, in addition to what I mentioned before, data science, or taking a minor in any of these renewable courses to make sure that you are, I would say, have a good chunk of petroleum engineering, the energy space, petroleum economics, and then you're all the way around it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Chichi, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. So can you hear me? Okay. So in line with so around innovation, I want to say something. So whilst innovation is readily available across the world and a whole lot has happened, we also need to understand as a country, innovation also comes at a cost. Yeah. That innovation, you must pay for it. And if we're going to attract innovation and technology that will help us to do our business in a tidier manner, in a safer manner, in a sustainable manner, we need to begin to look at things in country. Yes, we have said this before, that government is not here, but at least people are listening. Yeah, we have issues even around what we call forex FX mismatch in Nigeria. So we bring in the monies to put in place this investment. So let me be specific. So whether you're trying to do an LNG facility, a CNG, you're trying to do those are all virtual pipelines, or you're trying to build a pipeline facility or put in place gas infrastructure, whether upstream, mid, or downstream, the FX issues must be dealt with, because what you have is putting in place, bringing in place, credit from, be it infrastructure credit from, you put it in the system, and how that money is repatriated for a system that is dealing with Naira is still an issue that needs to be dealt with, so the money does not lose value. I just want to make that mark, because yes, we're saying innovation has moved across. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. I've said a couple of things there. There's a whole lot of technology available out there, things we can leverage on, but we need to understand that that comes at a cost, and we need to be deliberate about it, which includes some of the things we're saying that we need to take care in terms of fiscals, that are some of the policies that we're forming and so forth. And then on the skill set side, I think we've said it one way or the other in different ways. For me, what I've seen several across board in several parts of the value chain where I've served is, it will always be good that you think as a business person, and to be able to connect as a business person, you must have some skills, particularly analytical skills, business analytical skills, because for trending, for watching data, how you handle those data, you can advise investors, you can advise the business owners, you can advise the board, you can advise the executive management. It is key. It is very key that you're deliberate, and then update yourself constantly. What is happening out there? I mean, there's a whole lot of information available. People always look for very fancy things to do. No, start at your fingertips. What information do we have? I mean, people here on the panel have spoken to the fact that the COVID just made the world even smaller. We've got all sort of courses happening over the place for free. Tap into those information, see what you can do, and then if you need be, reach out to one or two, industry experts who can guide you as well. So that would just be it from me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chichi. So, Michael, you have the final word on the.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, for want of time, let me not attempt to repeat what my other colleagues have said, because they have actually touched across all the relevant points with regards to innovation, as well as skill set. But I just want to be a little specific with, and I mean, using myself as an example as well. Before I got into the industry, and in fact, just after leaving school, waiting for youth service, I learned how to use HISIS simulation software tool. Now, that's being specific. What do we need to do as within as students or as professionals or as young professionals that are eager to transit into the industry? we need to start to pick on specific skill sets to acquire. Emeka has touched on petroleum economics, so has Dan. Now there are lots of Excel trainings that are available, and just like Chichi said, and I mentioned earlier, are free. So we need to deliberately subscribe to this because these things are relevant within the industry. Excel is as basic as it may sound, it's a very powerful tool. So we need to deliberately learn how to make use of such tools. There's PipeSim development, PipeSim software, of course, which is also relevant. There's AutoCAD, there's Petrel, there's MBAL. I mean, these are useful tools that are being deployed within the industry. Just consciously make an effort to research on them. Connect with mentors as well. SP provides such an opportunity. They can provide guidance, they can provide direction with regards to relevant skill sets. But these few I've mentioned are key and are readily available. So I recommend that students have some targets set for themselves, be it 1 software training, 2, 3 software trainings. You're better preparing yourself, you're distinguishing yourself amongst the crowd in readiness for the transition and change the industry is looking forward to. Lastly, it's also engaging in leadership skill developments. Make an effort to volunteer for professional organizations and grow your leadership skills. So this, in addition to what my colleagues have said, would definitely go a long way in preparing us or preparing the young ones or the students for years ahead. Thank you, Benga.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chichi. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Emeka. For want of time, I won't take you up on some of the things you've raised, but I think the last few points have been quite specific, and we really appreciate that. I would believe that if we invite you to be part of an industry advisory board or to take part in any of our design courses as judges, you would oblige us. I'd like to believe you oblige us in any way you can. So we'll deliberate, we'll try to keep this conversation going, we'll engage you going forward, and we trust that by the time we have TID 3.0, that we'll have big good relationships with you guys and the respective organizations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Benga.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Benga. It was a pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah.
And to my fellow panelists, have a good day, gentlemen. Bye.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Chichi.
you.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Chichi.
And it's
Bye-bye.
nice to see you all.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well spent.
okay, thank you. Session. Commendable one, insightful and full of many information, very educative. Thank you so much, Dr. Lubinga. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Engineer Chichi. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mika. We have a lot of those following us on YouTube having to say they were encouraged, they are happy, they are well informed, and it has really built much more interest, even in the energy system, and wanted to put much of their energy into the oil and gas. Thank you so much. We appreciate this opportunity. All right, so we are moving on. Okay, we are moving on now, and we'll discuss talking about the lecturer program. Resume writing 101. Yeah, students do not write it. And if you just write a resume, very attractive resume, something you can, whenever, whoever, perhaps the HR is reading through, can see, and be very impressed. Okay, so, and this will be anchored by, facilitated by Chizom Kile. She's a petroleum engineer at NNPC. You're welcome, ma.
Hello, Paul. Thank you very much. I'm very excited and delighted to be here. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Chisom Obikile. And as Paul said, I will be facilitating an ambassador lecture program on resume writing. Okay. So before we get into the lecture, I just do a brief introduction and share with everyone a little bit about me. So like I said, my name is Chisom Obikile. I'm a graduate petroleum engineer with NNPC. I also volunteer with SPE as the Young Professional Mentor and with the SPE Lagos section as the Assistant Community Chair. I have degrees in petroleum engineering and chemical engineering from the University of Leeds and Texas A&M. For work experience, I have worked in the oil and gas industry and outside of the oil and gas industry. So I've worked in oil and gas servicing, so that is oil and gas business development, oil and gas procurement, and oil and gas tendering. I've also worked as a subsurface engineer and a reservoir engineer via internships with ExxonMobil. And in addition, I've worked briefly in the banking industry. Outside of my job and volunteering with SPE, I'm also interested in mental health and LGBT advocacy, and I volunteer with organizations in that space. I cook, and in my spare time, I write poetry. You can connect with me on LinkedIn for my name, or I will also drop a link to my profile before the lecture is over. You can also connect with me via email. My email address is chisomobikile. So that's a little bit about me. So we'll just go over to lecture. So when companies and businesses want to market their services and their value propositions, they do that via social media, they do that via their websites, they do that via company profiles. And the same is true for professionals and aspiring professionals. One medium by which we do this is through our resumes. Sections answering the question about how long should my resume be. I'll be sharing some resume writing tips, discussing about layouts, formatting, and something called ATS. And then if time permits, I will also go over some practical examples. So there are various types of resumes, mini resumes, infographics, non-traditional resumes, targeted resumes, to name a few. Today, I'll be focusing on the three main resume types. The first one is the chronological resume. This is one of the most common resumes. It highlights your work history in reverse chronological order. So from the most recent to the least recent. And your work history will be placed at the top of your resume immediately after your profile or your personal bio. And this type of resume is advantageous for people who have a strong work history. So if you've been in constant employment for a long period of time and you've been in employment in the industry in which you work, then is a type for you. If you are a graduate looking to get into the industry, or you're a professional looking to change industries, or you're someone who has a gap in their work history, this would not be the resume type for you. Second resume type is the functional resume. So with this resume type, as opposed to the chronological, this highlights more of your experiences and your competencies and your skills. So you would have that you wouldn't, for example, you wouldn't have your work history section. You'd have something like a professional experience section or an accomplishment section at the top of your resume. Sometimes, and in some functional resumes, you may completely ignore the work experience section entirely. And in some other instances, you can list your work experiences, but just as a list, you wouldn't itemize any achievements or accomplishments. So this resume type is good for people who have gaps in their resumes and just want to highlight their skills and they don't want to emphasize on the gaps. It's also good for someone who wants to change industries and doesn't necessarily have enough experience in the new industry that they're looking at. But a major drawback of this resume type is that hiring managers, when they see this, they are automatically alerted to the fact that there's something you're trying to hide. So even though it highlights your skills, it can also be a trigger for the person looking at your resume or a potential employer that says to them, oh, this person is trying to hide something. The last resume type is the combination or the hybrid resume. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a mix of the chronological and the functional resume. In this resume type, you're highlighting your skills, you're highlighting your competencies, but you're also giving employers what they want, which is a chronological work experience. Your chronological work experience would come later on in your resume, so towards the bottom, and you will have your competencies and your skills at the top. Nowadays, you would find that a lot of people and regardless of where you are in your career. It's good for students, it's good for recent graduates, it's good for professionals, and it's good for people who have extensive work experience. Again, the organization of your resume will vary depending on what you're looking to highlight. But as I said, nowadays you will find who utilize the combination resume. So now I'm going to talk about key resume sections. So there are 6 resume sections that I want to highlight, and these are the main ones. And most resumes will have some or all of these sections. The first section is the contact information. Here you want to share your full name, your address, your phone number, and your email address. And this section is essentially to provide a potential employer with information with which to contact you if they're looking to invite you for an interview. Another thing you can add to your contact info can be a link to your professional social media, so like your LinkedIn. A link to personal websites if those personal websites are professional targeted, right? Or if they're appropriate for a professional setting and you feel like it would be beneficial to your application, then you can add that to your contact info section are very personal information. For example, your date of birth, your gender, your marital status, your local government area, to name a few. Now, if the employer requires this information, then you add it. If not, it's best to leave it out of your resume. The next section is the summary, and I like to term this as your selling point. This is your punchline of your resume. This is the first section of your resume that the employer is going to see, and here you really want to sell yourself. Why you are going to be a good fit for their company, and you want to also share qualifications that back the claims that you're making. So if you're going to say that you're good at something, you're good at problem solving, you're good at you have strong analytic skills, then you want to add in this section examples that buttress these skills. Again, this section is supposed to be very short, only a couple of sentences. So you really want to utilize this and market your most your selling points, so your most laudable skills and achievements. Third section is the work experience. So I've already discussed when I was talking about resume types, about work experience, and this section is one of the more dynamic sections in your resume. So it will vary depending on where you are at in your career. It will also vary depending on the resume type that you pick. Regardless, if you opt to use to have a work experience section, you should state the name of the organization, your role, and the date in which you work there. Another thing that you can add in this section is the location. The next section is the education section. This is another dynamic section. This section is one of the most important sections for a student resume and to some extent for a graduate's resume. It's usually underplayed for professionals or people that have extended years in industry, but regardless, when you put the education section in your resume, section should include your university, your course of study, your class of degree, and the year in which you attended university. The fifth section is key skills. And so this section will be modified to fit the job role that you're applying for or the organization that you are targeting. You want to make sure that when you're highlighting skills in this section, it is the skills that are relevant to the job. You can find these skills under like the job description, where companies usually highlight what they're looking for in the person to fill a job opening, and you make sure that the skills that you're highlighting in your resume are in line with what the company is looking for. You can add technical skills or hard skills. You can add soft skills. So technical skills like softwares that you're proficient in, for example, Microsoft Excel, C++, to name a few. Whatever is relevant for the job that you're looking at, the job that you're applying to, that is what you put on your resume. Soft skills like adaptability, teamwork, leadership can also be added to this section, but that is more for students. Professionals may not necessarily have to add a soft skills section, especially if you have experience in the related industry, and this is because you should be able to showcase through your experiences that you have these inherent soft skills. The section is hobbies and interests. So this you can add to your resume if you have space. And then you want to ensure that the hobbies and the interests that you are adding augment the information you've already presented. Again, you can try to add interests that are in line with the company's values or interests that you feel like are interesting or inherent to you and are advantageous to your application. Some other sections that you can consider adding to your resume are certifications and training, and this is for professionals, professionals in academia that have a lot of certifications and training and continuous education after their university education. You can also add activities and associations as if you're a student, engineering projects, achievements, and references section. So now we're going to answer the question, how long should my resume be? This is probably the most asked question when it comes to resume writing. Everybody will know, should my resume be a one-pager? Should it be 2 pages? Or should it be more? Conventional consensus around resume writing is that your resume can be 2 pages maximum, but must be, or ideally should be, 1 page. But with every rule, there are exceptions, and so I'll share some of the exceptions with you. Now, if you're a student and you are looking to create a resume, you want to put everything that you're doing in school, your volunteer experience, organizations, coursework, things that buttress your skills and competencies that you've acquired during your studies. You are allowed to have a 2-page resume, right? As long as all the content in that resume is relevant. So as long as everything you're putting there highlights your skills, highlights your competencies, and makes you a more qualified candidate for a position, then you are allowed to use 2 pages. Resume experts say that if you are transitioning between industries, or you're changing industries, or you are a fresh graduate, or you are a professional but you have less than 5 years of work experience, then ideally your resume should be a 1-pager. However, the issue of content over page length also applies here. If you are sure that the content that you want to put in your resume is relevant and is going to go the extra mile in helping you secure the position you're looking for, then go ahead and put in those extra sections and have a 2-page resume. A lot of employers and hiring managers have said that they would rather, read a well laid out 2-page resume than a crammed 1-page resume. And you find that a lot of times when people do not want to remove information from their resume, they tend to cram it up and try to fit it into 1 page because they think that is what is necessary. But it's better for you to have 2 pages that is readable than a 1 page that is illegible. Finally, you can actually have more than 2 pages. It's not the conventional, but it is quite common if you are a senior level manager or you've worked in senior level management or you've worked in senior level management. So for you to get there, you've had extensive years of experience and accomplishments, certification, trainings, and so those achievements are important to document in your resume, and in those instances, you're allowed to have more than 2 pages. If you work in research or academia, or you're looking to look at research and academia, you can also have 3 pages because you want to highlight the publications that you have, your research papers that have been published, certifications and trainings as well. Again, another group of people who can have more than 2 pages are people that are working with the government or people that are seeking to work with the government. You're allowed to have have a resume that is more than 2 pages because it is believed that when you're looking to apply to positions in government, especially at a higher level, you want to really lay out all your information on your resume. So again, to kind of couch all of this, when it comes to resume length, you don't need to focus on the length. You should focus more on the content. So I'm going to share some resume writing tips. The first tips that I will share are applicable to everyone, background or where you are in your career. Okay, yeah. So the first tip is to make a list of your experiences. I've been doing this since I was in university, and I don't actually have a list. I have a database of all my experiences, everything about university, every organization, every association I ever joined, all my internships. I have that down in a Word document, and I continue to update that Word document as I do new things. And what this does for you is that it creates an information bank for you to, construct your resume. When you start creating your resume, you realize that you can't have just one resume. You're going to have multiple resumes, depending on, for example, if you want to volunteer, some volunteer organizations ask for your resume. That resume will be different from the resume that you use if you're applying for a job. And so having an information bank allows you to see all your achievements and your accomplishments in one in one space and then to pick which achievements and which accomplishments are relevant to the job you are looking to apply for. The second tip is to use action verbs. I can have a whole lecture on action verbs. They are very crucial to your resume. They change the tone of your resume. They ascribe responsibility to the duties and tasks that you've undertaken. It's very important to use action words in your resume. Action words include words like managed, led, spearheaded, organized, and so on. There are hundreds and hundreds of action verbs depending on what you're trying to describe in your resume, and I do suggest that you utilize them because they make your resume a lot stronger and a lot more impactful. The third point is to quantify when possible, and this as well goes hand in hand with action verbs. So I'll give an example. So let's say you are a manager at a company, right? And you work with a team of people, and your team just underwent a project that improved sales in your company. When you want to put that down in your resume, you can say, "Oh, manage a team that increased sales in the company." Whilst that says what you did, it's not really impactful, and a potential employer is not going to read that bullet point and be like, "Wow, fantastic." You can recouch that and say, "Manage a 5-member team that improved company sales by 50%. So that is what the quantifying is. The 5-member team and the 50% has quantified your achievements and makes that bullet point more impactful. Now, when an employer is reading that, they can say, "Oh, this person is able to achieve this." It really, again, to use the word quantify, it really strengthens your bullet points when you're able to ascribe numeric values to your achievements. The last point for everyone is carefully edit and proofread. You have to keep going over your resume over and over again. Dot your I's, cross your T's, check for your punctuation. A resume that has errors is unprofessional. It doesn't speak well of you. You don't inspire confidence in a potential employer if you submit a resume that has errors in it. It shows a lack of diligence, which is not ideal. Again, the whole point of your resume is to put your best foot forward and to market yourself in the best light. So you want to avoid having any errors. You can also give your resumes to colleagues and friends to use so that you get fresh eyes to look at your resume and to pinpoint mistakes that you may have overlooked. Now, some tips, resume tips for students. The first tip I want to share for students is to spend all these years, working on getting your degree. You need to show it. You need to highlight your academic achievements in your education section. If you have above a 3.0 and above out of its 4.0 scale, you want. If you were on the dean's list, you want to put that there. Scholarships, any scholarships that you achieved, you put that there. Did you make the best design project? You want to put that there. Every single achievement or accomplishment you've made over the course of your academic career, you definitely want to highlight that there, because this is the section that allows employers to really see your capabilities and see your competencies as a student, because you don't have a lot of work experience yet. Second tip is to promote your work ethic. So people think that things like having perfect attendance is mundane, but it's not. It shows diligence. It shows that you can be reliable. And this translates to soft skills that employers are looking for. So if you have perfect attendance, please add it there. If you've held any leadership positions in organizations, please add it there. You really want to put these accomplishments, but because these are the things that speak to, soft skills that you've acquired. The third point is a point that may be of concern to a lot of people. So you're thinking, okay, so I've gone to school, my GPA is not so great. How do I, tailor my resume to still highlight my traits or my best achievement, my best skill? The thing is that every resume is different. So you want to highlight the skills that are your strengths. So if you don't have the perfect grade, that's fine. If you have work experiences, if you've done internships, then highlight that. Another way to kind of couch your GPA is to put your major GPA instead. So instead of putting your cumulative GPA, go ahead and just put your major GPA there, but make sure to label it as your major GPA so you don't mislead potential employers. The last point for students is to describe unrelated jobs properly. Unrelated jobs are jobs that you've done that are not necessarily the industry that you're in. So, for example, if, for example, you have done internships, volunteer experiences, you've done a part-time job, you want to put that on your resume, you want to highlight your achievements as opposed to your day-to-day responsibilities. So I'm going to talk about layout, formatting, and design. And this is more about how your resume looks. So your design can either be simple, or you can have infographics, or you can have icons. You can either have a single column resume, which is the more traditional resume, or you can have a double column resume, which is more modern and more aesthetically pleasing. Again, when it comes to resumes, you have to think about your font size. You want to use fonts that are common. I personally like Montserrat's font. It's the font that I'm using in this presentation, but it's not a common font. If I use that on my resume and I send it to an employer who doesn't have Montserrat, a lot of the content will be distorted in gibberish because they don't have it. So you want to use common fonts like Roman, Arial, and you want to use like a 10 to a 12-point size. For formatting, you want to make sure formatting is neat, is easy to read, and again, consistent. Use bold, underline, and italics to highlight your sections. Finally, in this aspect, I want to talk about something called the ATS. And the ATS is the Applicant Tracking System. And it's a computer program that a lot of companies use to screen and sort through candidates for a particular job profile. This is very important when you're talking about your layout and your formats and design, because the ATS program cannot read intricate designs and they cannot read double columns. So if you submit those kind of resumes to an online application portal, a lot of your information will be left out. You can find that you may qualify for a job, but then you're not getting called back because the applicant tracking system did not read your qualifications or did not read your skills. So my advice is for you to have two resumes. So you can have one resume that's single column with a simple design that you use for your online applications, and you can have a double column resume that is more intricately designed for when you are interfacing with the recipient of your resume is going to be a human being. Then you can use your more modern, more intricately designed resume. If it's a computer system, you want to use the single column, simpler designed resume. So I'll be showing some practical examples of resumes that I've discussed previously in this lecture. So this is the chronological resume, the functional resume, and the combination resume. These are just examples that I pulled up on the internet just so that you can see the structure and the layout and how the contents are organized in these different resumes. Again, this is an example of a single column resume and a double column resume. You can see how the information is arranged in each resume. For the single column resume, you can see that you can read from left to right throughout and the information makes sense. In the double column resume, you can't read left to right because information has been sectioned in columns. Now, we'll go into more of a practical example. So this is a sample student resume. In this resume, I've highlighted the different sections: the contact information, the personal profile, education section. In the education section, the coursework, there's a table that shows relevant coursework. And again, if you're going to do this, you really want to show the coursework where you've had the best grades, not if you've had it, that's what you want to highlight here. Then you can add this section, engineering projects. So I add this resume because it highlights some of the projects that I've done in school that are relevant to the industry in my second year of university. So I have a section for industrial experience, skills. For the skills section, I have a technical skills section and an employability skills section. So employability skills is what I've named the section for my soft skills. And you see that you don't only list the soft skills, you give examples of your experiences that highlight how you have developed these soft skills. Again, I have an employment section for employment outside of the industry, again, to highlight how I have honed these soft skills. Then finally, hobbies and interests and a reference section. So just take a few minutes, maybe 1 or 2 minutes to just look at this resume, and I'd like you to think about, what do you think is wrong with this resume? Where are there errors in the resume? Where are there opportunities for to make changes in the resume to make it more powerful? And so just a minute for you to just overview, and then I'll talk through some of the necessary changes. Okay, so the first problem with this resume is that the personal profile section is too lengthy. It's about 6 sentences, 2 paragraphs. That is too long. It should be about just 3 lines, 2 or 3 sentences max. A good thing that the personal profile shows is that it outlines extracurriculars, and you definitely want to put that there as if you've held any kind of leadership position. Another thing that this resume, another problematic area section is way too low in the resume. For a student resume, you want your achievements to be right at the top, right under your education section. It can be a part of your education section or a subsection right under your education section, but you definitely don't want it to be too low or on the second page. So another thing is with this resume, a lot of action words are repeated, and that's not good because it doesn't make your resume sound professional, and it makes it sound a bit wonky and like unprofessional. If an employer is having to read the same verbs over and over again, it makes it seem like you do not know how to, portray the experiences or the achievements or the accomplishments you've achieved. Another thing is that there are no quantifiers. In the industrial experience, in the employment section, there are no quantifiers. So the bullet points here are a bit weak, and they don't really highlight, the strengths of the accomplishments in this resume. So this is another resume, a resume sample for a recent graduate. So if you've just graduated from university, this would be kind of what your resume is. Again, almost the same section as the student resume with some slight changes. Now you can see that the profile is a lot more streamlined. is short and straight to the point. The coursework has been removed, and the achievement section has been moved to the top. I've also added volunteer experiences as well as positions held and a brief summary of the activities or accomplishments undertaken. So again, maybe I'll give about a minute for everyone to kind of take a look at the web, come up with some things you feel like could be better with this resume. Where are the errors? Where are the mistakes? Are there any formatting mistakes? Just look at it. You can put your observations in the comment section, and I'll discuss some of the mistakes or errors with this resume. Okay, so let's talk about some of the mistakes that are in this resume. The first mistake is inconsistent formatting, and you may not notice it, but when you print out this resume, you will realize that the spacing between sections are not consistent throughout the resume. Again, an important thing in your resume writing is that your formatting needs to be consistent throughout. There's another instance of inconsistent formatting, and this is in the design of the resume section. So you can see that in this employment section, I've underlined my bullet point, and my bullet points are not underlined anywhere else in the resume. And this is inconsistent and can throw off the reader. Again, inconsistent formatting. Here, there's a space between list of my technical skills where there shouldn't be one. So finally, I will now go over a professional resume. So before I start, I want us to look at the resume and kind of, can we identify what type of resume this is? Is this a chronological resume? Is this a functional resume? Or is this a hybrid resume? So just another maybe 30 seconds for us to look at the resume, and please write your answer in the comment section, and then we'll go ahead to kind of analyze this resume. Okay, so this resume is a chronological resume, and you can tell that because the work experience is right at the top of the resume, immediately after the professional bio, and it's arranged in reverse chronological order. So this is the highlight, the work highlight of this resume, and so that's why it's a chronological resume. Again, in comparison to the previous graduate resume that we just analyzed, you can see that the work history has been merged into one to show a robust and comprehensive work experience. Skills and competency section have been, and then an additional section has been added, which is training and certifications. And you find that as you progress in your career, you begin to do trainings, you begin to do certifications, and then this needs to be highlighted in your resume. So you would add this and you would subtract other things like engineering projects, you would subtract things like your coursework as you develop further in your career. Info section, I have added a link to my LinkedIn, and that's my professional social media. And sometimes employers do go and look at your social media. They want to see what your engagements are. What else are you doing? Outside of your outside of your conventional job to benefit the industry. sharing news. Are you sharing news in the? So they're going to go there and look at your engagement, and that also tells them, give them more information about your suitability for the position or for their company. Again, in this resume, you can see that active verbs are utilized. There and no active verbs are repeated, or very few are repeated. You can see active verbs like prepared, awarded, analyzed, coupled. Robust, a good number of active verbs in your resume, and that again, like I said, it shows responsibility and that you're taking an active engagement in your duties and your job role. Another thing this resume shows is quantifiers. You want to have at least 70% of your bullet points. You want them to have quantifiers in your resume. You want them to have, okay, how many member teams did you, how many, what the number of members in your team that you led, quantify, for example, read one bullet, manage a portfolio of 4 accounts and generated. You want to do that. I know that sometimes people may shy away from putting those specific information on your resume, but your resume is not a place for you to be shy. It's a place for you to market yourself and sell yourself in the best way possible. And quantifiers are an amazing way to do that. So again, let's take maybe 30 seconds to a minute to kind of look at this resume, and let's come up with things that are wrong with the resume. What can you identify can be corrected in the resume? Can you identify any mistakes in the resume? Please leave your observations in the comment section, and then I'll come and again analyze some of the mistakes that are inherent in this resume. Okay, so let's see some of the errors and mistakes in the resume. First error is that towards the end of the resume, you can see that the sections are crammed, and this can make the resume illegible for a reader. So it may be unreadable if you cram too much information in your resume. And sometimes we do this because we're trying to fit the one-page format. Again, like I said, instead of doing this, you're better off having a 2-page resume than cramming information to fit 1 page. Another thing that is wrong with this resume is that towards the training and certification section, there is inconsistent formatting. Again, to reiterate, you want to maintain consistency in formatting your resume. Okay, so now I'll just share some final points about resume writing. First, you want to start with a template. You always start your resume, when you want to start constructing your resume, start with a template. There are a lot of free resume templates online that can suit anybody's taste and needs. So do start with a resume. Focus on the content and not on the page length. Always proofread your resume and have someone else proofread your resume for you and give you reviews. Do not use first-person pronouns in your resume. I, we, us. Your resume is yours. So it's already assumed that the content in the resume is yours. You don't need to use any first-person pronouns. And finally, please do not lie or exaggerate on your resume. Do not embellish and say things that you haven't done. And again, do not add things on your resume that you don't want to be asked about in your interview. So with this, I have come to the end of my lecture. I hope you found it insightful, and I would like to remind you that there is no one-size-fits-all recipe. And your breath. I'll provide feedback about this presentation by going to this QR code. And again, thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this insightful. And now I'll take some questions.
Um, Thank you very much, Ms. Chisom, for the lecture on resume writing 101. I would like to quickly apologize to everyone as we are already behind schedule, but then we'll move quickly to just finish up with what we have on ground. I was supposed to have started the short course about 30 minutes ago, but then we'll be starting by 1:40 sharp. I believe the links to join the short course have been sent to our mails. You can also find it on the YouTube chat box. Because we want an interactive session, we'll be using that link. So we'll be ending this after we share, after we announce the winners of our competitions. So as part of the Industry Discourse 2.0, we held two competitions, the Petro Debate and the Petro Quiz. So I'll quickly like to announce the winners of our competitions. For the Petro Debate, we had about 11 participants at the beginning, but after thorough competition and two rounds, we have the first runner-up, Abdullah Sulaiman, a 500 level student of geosciences. And the winner of the Petro Debate is Ifizino Elitabe from mechanical engineering 300 level. The team is going to contact both of you to get your prizes. Now for the Petro quiz, after various applications and having it in rounds, we were able to get top two winners. The first runner-up is a team of three. Someone from Petroleum Engineering 500 level, Fuad Ahmed, Chemical Engineering from 100 level, Prosper Mbendu, Petroleum Engineering 300 level. And the winner of the Petro quiz as a team of two, Fortune Oyewole, Geoscience 500 level, and Emmanuel Solomon, Biomedical Engineering 200 level. Because of time, I'll quickly like to just stop there, and I would advise everyone to start joining the link for the short course as I've sent that out already. We'll meet at the short course. Thank you very much for joining.